see if she forgets, I can yell at her rather than yelling at everyone. In any case, we're finally moving our way, getting very close to the topic we wanted to get to in Tocqueville, which is where religion fits into the scheme of things. But again, let's begin as always with a little bit of a review. Remember what I said the thesis was for our purposes. Over the long run, democratic social conditions can threaten altogether now political democracy, individual freedom, and human dignity. And we had looked at a series of attitudes that Tocqueville thought, all things being equal, you'd see a lot of in democratic societies that democratic cultures are predisposed towards. We talked about consumerism. We talked about individualism. And last class we talked about a debased and insatiable lust for equality. And we discovered that the greatest love of a democratic society was equality, that their desire for it was, note I said greatest, not only, but greatest. We said their appetite for it is insatiable. They never can get enough equality, because for them to be satisfied, there have to exist perfect equality. And that's impossible given the fact that no two individuals are identical. We're all different. So there are definitely going to be inequalities that can't be eliminated. So a democratic society is perpetually at war. We must eliminate these evil inequalities. And the war never ends because it can't be won. Also, the appetite in a democratic society for equality is also debased in the sense that a democratic society will always vote for equality. It loves equality, so just stick the label equality on it. Democratic society will say, give me that, I need that. Democratic society won't bother to distinguish between different types of equality or between equality in different things. So yes, a democratic society will believe in equality before the law. Okay? But also a democratic society, in a democratic society, equality can easily take the form of a hatred of excellence, a jealousy, an envy, a desire to allow no one to excel, a yearning for utter mediocrity. And since its love of inequality doesn't involve making distinctions, it's going to involve embracing good forms of equality and bad forms. It's not going to look behind the label. Okay? Then we moved on to discussing a cult of conformity to mass opinion and mass culture. And we said that human beings and human societies need dogmatic beliefs. By dogmatic beliefs, we mean beliefs we accept, if you will, on faith, on trust. We trust the person telling us this. We trust they know what they're talking about, so we believe them. And there's nothing bad about that. That's built into the human condition. You and I, most of our beliefs depend upon authority figures, our dogmatic beliefs in Tocqueville's phrase. That's also true of Albert Einstein, of Plato, whoever you want to pick out as your sampled world historic genius there. They too depend on largely dogmatic beliefs. Now, in an aristocratic society, these dogmatic beliefs are supplied by tradition and authority figures. It's the way we've always done things, and surely our great-great-great-great-great-grandfathers knew what they were doing, or somebody above me in the social order has told me this, and they're much smarter than I, and better educated and better informed, so I can trust what they tell me. In a democratic society, however, people tend to distrust authority figures. They tend to distrust tradition. Their attitude is we're all equal here, so there's no reason why I should defer to anyone else's judgment on really anything. The fact that you're richer than me doesn't make you better than me, doesn't make you smarter than me, doesn't mean I should automatically believe whatever you tell me. And democratic societies don't know much about tradition, and to the extent they do, they don't place a lot of reliance on it, because great-great-grandpa was no smarter than me. So in a democratic society, people value independent thought, thinking for themselves. I make up my own mind. Nobody tells me how to believe. What to believe, nobody tells me how to live. Where do you get off telling me I have to think that way or live that way? Are you saying you're better than me? Because I can tell you you're not. We're all equal here, right? Hold on one second. But so they disdain tradition and authority. They celebrate thinking for themselves. But it creates a problem because they have a problem thinking for themselves. They need dogmatic beliefs. And they can't turn to those dogmatic beliefs for their betters, the people above them in the pecking order, because, we're all equal here, or they can't turn to tradition. So their dogmatic beliefs tend to be supplied by public opinion. A democratic society has an immense amount of faith in public opinion. And what it tends to produce is a herd of nonconformists, a group of people telling everyone, I think for myself. And while they're saying this, they're looking around at their neighbors, making sure that's okay. Because they don't really think for themselves. They don't have an education that will let them think for themselves in at least a few areas. They don't have a lot of time. They're busy earning a living. So public opinion replaces authority figures as the source of these dogmatic beliefs. So a democratic society tends to be very homogeneous. In an aristocratic society, you might have competing authority figures saying different things. But in a democratic society, there's one public opinion, and what it says goes. Tocqueville tells us at one point, in every European country, you can find massive amounts of disagreement and argument. The example he gives is forms of government, right? Even though they have a monarchy, and even though it's illegal to attack the monarchy, in any European country you can find people who don't believe in monarchy. He says, look around America, try to find someone who believes in monarchy. Try to find someone who doesn't believe in democracy. Very homogeneous, one current of thought. Max?
I watched this musical last weekend, Fiddler on the Roof.
Yeah.
You seen this?
I saw it so many years ago, I barely
It's
remember.
very much about tradition, and then his three daughters break away. They want to marry who they want to marry instead of following tradition. And all these. But that's European versus them transitioning into democracy.
It's from America, right?
At the end, they have to move to America and all these different things. Spoiler. But yeah, just very similar. The idea is very much everything.
Along these lines, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, you've ruined it for everyone. I'll give you a spoiler. Now,
It's been out for a while.
okay. Cult of conformity to mass opinion, mass culture. Attitude number 5, the old collapse of horizons. Okay. Before defining it, I think what I handled was I talked about what causes it. And we talk about, in democratic society, people are very focused on creature comforts, on improving their standard of living. They're fixated on working hard to acquire new material goods. That leaves them little time to think about anything other than material goods. There's no room in their mind and in their heart for that. Likewise, so focused on material goods, when you're so focused on material goods, it's easy to go from they're the most important thing to they're the only thing that all that exists is matter. People in a democratic society distrust authority figures, they distrust tradition. people in a democratic society say we're all equal here. We should all be able to understand everything. So they think everything should be simple and it should be something they can understand and wrap their minds around quickly. And anything that they can't wrap their minds around quickly, anything that seems long and complicated, they're prone to dismiss. Put this all together, what you get, where do you get? You get a loss of belief in a God. You get a loss of belief in an afterlife. You get a loss of belief in the soul. You get a loss of belief in meaning. And you're left with the view that life is meaningless and without purpose. It's simply a brief scramble to maximize your pleasure. So it tends to issue an eat, drink, and be merry ethos, because tomorrow you shall die. In a universe with no meaning and purpose, in which nothing counts, in which nothing amounts to anything, in which nothing is significant, leaves you with little to do other than kind of get fetal and die, or alternatively pursue what pleasure you can, because there's nothing other than that. That's the only thing left in such a universe. So a democratic society is very prone to what I'm calling, we know it's Nietzsche's phrase, Tocqueville doesn't use it, and I certainly didn't invent it, although it's pretty cool. Nietzsche's collapse of horizons.
I think Tocqueville calls it like medum sai something.
No, he's talking about there where reincarnation.
Oh, is that what he's talking
He's
about?
having
Okay.
terminology about reincarnation, soul moving into different bodies. So you take those five attitudes, you mix them together. Government's going to become more centralized. Local governments, state governments, if they even exist, will tend to lose all their power. Their powers will be absorbed into a single central government, which will run the whole show, which will make all the rules. Likewise, government will tend to expand in its scope, move into more and more areas of life. Why is this? Number one, I gave you 4 reasons for this. Not a complete list, but just something to hang our hat on. Number one, a democracy's commitment to uniform authority. They want everyone to have uniform rules, rather. They want everyone to follow the same rules, to obey the same laws, to have access to exactly the same governmental services. And you can only have one uniform set of laws and services. That's only possible if you have only one authority making them, because different authorities can make decisions. They're going to make different decisions. So that works in favor of the extreme centralization of government. Number 2, democratic societies love equality. And they're never satisfied with the amount of equality they have. And they tend to grow government to put an end to inequalities. Government becomes a tool we can use to eliminate these existing inequalities, which we don't like, which make us uncomfortable, which make us feel guilty, which make us feel like we're doing something wrong. So government will expand to eliminate an ever-growing set of inequalities. And since it never succeeds, there's always more to do and more growth necessary. We talk reason number 3, disinterest in public affairs. When people get done working for the day, they want to go home. They want to hang out maybe with their immediate family or 1 or 2 very close friends. They have no interest in going to meetings. They have no interest in public affairs. So when problems emerge, since people won't voluntarily tackle them, since they won't get themselves organized to do it, it falls to government. When people see a problem in their community, they don't say, what can I do about that? What they say is, why doesn't City Hall get off its butt and do something about that. Time to email the mayor. And then I go back to my TV show. Okay? And then the final, number 4 on our list, was the lack of self-sufficiency in a world of individualism. In a democratic society, people tend to be isolated. They have their immediate family, they have their tiny circle of friends, and that is sort of their universe. But the problem that creates is the fact that we're not self-sufficient. We need a lot of help, and our friends and immediate family aren't always going to be able to provide the help we need. In an aristocratic society, people were bound tightly together. There's kind of a strong communitarian ethos. So you had people to turn to in cases of need. But here in a democratic society, you don't. And the default position is turn to the government. Again, not because people are lazy, they just need help and there's no one around. There's only one button to press when you have a problem you can't solve. You're going to press that button a lot. The following, I think I stopped before reading you this quote, and I didn't want to cheat you out of another dramatic reading. I've already skipped a couple.
What page?
Good question, 672. Wait for people to get there. If I've read it, tell me so I don't waste my time. Brother, I don't know what's showing up in my voice, but I have a cold or some kind of little crud. So, first full paragraph on 672. Since in times of equality, no man is obliged to put his powers at the disposal of another, and no one has any claim of right to substantial support from his fellow men, each is dependent and weak. These two conditions, which must be neither seen quite separately nor confused, give the citizen extremely contradictory instincts. He is full of confidence and pride in his independence among his equals, but from time to time his weakness makes him feel the need for some outside help, which he cannot expect from any of his fellows, for they are both impotent and cold. In this extremity, he naturally turns his eyes toward that huge entity which alone stands out above the universal level of abasement. His needs, and even more his longings, continually put him in mind of that entity. And he ends by regarding it as the sole and necessary support of his individual weakness. So for all those reasons, government is going to tend to expand. Government's going to tend to become more centralized. So where does this leave us? If the Tocqueville's argument is that in a democracy, over time, the natural tendency is more centralization, more expansion, bigger government. But when I say bigger government there, I don't mean necessarily number of employees or budget. I mean government doing more different things. At a certain point in this process, a danger appears. And he thinks it is the main danger people in a democratic society have to worry about. And it's the danger of a new type of oppression, a new type of despotism. To understand the new type of despotism, and remember our rule, right? Slow me down if I'm going too fast. We need to first think about the old type of despotism. Okay? If you turn to page 691, which is where I'm going, he uses as his example of the old type of despotism, the Roman Empire. Picture the Roman Empire at the height of its powers. Who is sitting on top of that food chain? Well, that's a particular person who occupied.
That was when it was the largest.
Okay.
The
But
emperor?
point is, on top of the empire, right? This vast empire, who is in charge? The emperor. The emperor. And the emperor is a very, very powerful man. Okay? And the emperor is not, how can I put this? He's not kind of a mild, gentle, forgiving type. If you run afoul of him, if you incur his wrath, things are going to get bad for you very rapidly. It's not going to be a traffic ticket. Okay? If you anger the emperor, he might very well put you to death. Moreover, he might put you to death in some sort of extremely painful way. We mentioned gladiatorial combats. Did we not? What about throwing people to hungry lions, starving lion, and then throw someone in the room with it and watch the lion feast for cheering crowds, rooting for the lion? And if you really upset him, he would go for the ultimate, and that is, of course, crucifixion. Okay? So, this is somebody who's not going to shy away from killing people. He's not going to shy away from, torturing people. As a matter of fact, he's mad enough, he'll not only torture you to death, he'll torture your family first in front of your very eyes, and all your friends. If he's really mad, he might burn down your town, kill the men, sell the women into slavery, salt the earth so nothing grows there. Moral of the story, you don't want to annoy this guy. You don't want to give him problems. That's sort of the bad news. This guy is harsh. This guy is brutal. He's not messing around. There's no forgiving and forgetting here. There is, however, good news. The emperor will not ask a lot out of you. The emperor's not going to try to micromanage your life. He's not going to try to tell you what to do every minute of your day. But what he wants from you is that you work hard, you pay the full amount you owe in taxes, you follow the law, you do not challenge his authority. And if you do that stuff, he'll leave you alone. I mean, you may be paying a lot in taxes, but you're not worried about being fed to wild beasts or something of that nature. The IRS is bad. I get a sense wild beasts are probably worse, all things considered. So the old despotism of the Roman Empire was a very harsh despotism. You might even say a brutal despotism. But it was sort of limited. It didn't make too many demands. It didn't mess with your everyday life very much. You leave him alone, he leaves you alone. That's sort of the deal. The new type of oppression we have to fear in the age of democracy is very different. It is a despotism that is not harsh. It is a despotism that is not brutal. But it is a despotism that's kind of all-encompassing, that's suffocating. Zillions of rules and regulations, complicated rules and regulations. So, and we'll need to explore that in a minute, but in the world of democracy, says on the first full paragraph, on 691, a despotism in the context of a democratic people would have a different character. It would be more widespread and milder. It would degrade men rather than torment them. If you're down to the next to last full paragraph on the page, he says, in the future, our leaders will not be tyrants in the world of democracy. They will be schoolmasters. Now, what is this new, gentler, softer kind of despotism? Let me read you a quote here. Maybe the most famous passage in this book, and this book gets quoted a lot. I am trying to imagine under what novel features despotism may appear in the world. In the first place, I see an innumerable multitude of men, alike and equal, constantly circling around in pursuit of the petty and banal pleasures with which they glut their souls. Each one of them, withdrawn into himself, is almost unaware of the fate of the rest. Mankind, for him, consists in his citizens and his personal friends. As for the rest of his fellow citizens, they are near enough, but he does not notice them. He touches them, but feels nothing. He exists in and for himself. And though he may still have a family, one can at least say that he has not got a fatherland. No, I'm not done with my reading yet, so don't close your book. But he has to imagine this vast throng of people. Think of the, I like to use the example of the quad on a really nice day around lunchtime. People all over the place, zillions of them. But each of these people are focused in on their own individual world. Maybe they're there with one friend. Maybe they're thinking about what they're going to be doing tonight. Everyone is in this vast crowd, but people don't notice one another. Each one's sort of in a world of his or her own, a private little universe. In this world, people touch one. They walk through the quad. Busy time, you get people who brush by you and stuff. But they feel nothing. They look at each other, but they see right through each other. So there's a mass of atomized consumers. This vast throng of atomized consumers. He continues. Over this kind of man stands an immense protective power, which is alone responsible for their enjoyment and watching over their fate. The power is absolute, thoughtful of detail, orderly, provident, and gentle. It would resemble parental authority if father-like had tried to prepare its charges for a man's life. But on the contrary, it only tries to keep them in perpetual childhood. It likes to see the citizens enjoy themselves, provided that they think of nothing but enjoyment. It gladly works for their happiness, but wants to be the sole agent and judge of it. It provides for their security, foresees and supplies their wants, facilitates their pleasures, manages their principal concerns, directs their industry, and divides their inheritances. Why should it not entirely relieve them from the trouble of thinking and the cares of living? It daily makes the exercise of free choice less useful and rarer, restricts the activity of free will within a narrower compass, and little by little robs each citizen of the proper use of his faculties. Having thus taken each citizen in turn in its powerful grasp and shaped him to its will, government then extends its embrace to include the whole of society. It covers the whole of social life with a network of petty, complicated rules that are both minute and uniform, through which men, even of the greatest originality and the most vigorous temperament, cannot force their heads above the crowd. It does not break men's will, but softens, bends, and guides it. It seldom enjoins, but often inhibits action. It does not destroy anything, but prevents much being born. It is not at all tyrannical, but it hinders, restrains, innovates, stifles, and stultifies, so much that in the end each nation is no more than a flock of timid and hardworking animals, with the government as its shepherd. So above this world of distracted, atomized consumers stands an immense governmental bureaucracy. This governmental bureaucracy is constantly promulgating more rules, more regulations, one after the other, after the other, after the other, just keep spewing out. If you ask the government why it does this, it says, I want to help people. I want to make their lives better. Life is a messy place. Bad things can happen to people. I'm trying to protect them. And when it says this, it is not lying. It's telling the truth. It's here to help. It views each citizen the way a parent views a small child. When you're a parent, it really changes a lot of things about the way you see the world. And one of the things that changes, you have this little person in it. You feel this overwhelming protectiveness on all sorts of different levels. Yeah, you don't want the kid running around and falling and crashing his head on concrete. But beyond that, you're concerned about their emotional well-being. You're concerned about their life decisions. It views citizens like a small child and itself as a parent. It embraces them with all these rules, but those rules are an expression of love. The problem is these rules don't help. They hurt. Because what they do is prevent these individuals from becoming adult human beings. Takes away their ability to take risks. Takes away their ability to make decisions for themselves. It reduces them to the level of infants. Okay? Now, treating infants like infants is not a problem. It's what you do. Treating adults like infants is bad. That's an insult to their dignity. That's a refusal to acknowledge their adulthood. But more than that, since that's all these kids have ever known, it ends up crippling them. It imprisons them in perpetual childhood. They never really get to grow up. They never really get to make decisions for themselves. And it sort of dehumanizes them, as he says. At the end of the day, it reduces society, the citizens of a society, to sheep. What are sheep? Timid, passive animals, right? That don't do much. Okay, they eat their grass, right? And that's pretty much it. So the new species of oppression he fears, you might say, is what I like, sometimes it's called soft despotism. That's a common name applied to it. I like to call it the despotism of the omnicompetent nanny state. The omnicompetent nanny state, in which government acts like a parent of a small child. Fair enough? You with me? In a sense, this government is like a bad parent, right? It won't let them grow up. It won't let them achieve adulthood. It won't let them become what the parents are. The parents are grown up, but the kids are not going to be allowed to experience that privilege. Now, how does this soft despotism come into existence, you ask? Good question. Okay? You might think it's kind of a top-down thing. The tanks roll. The army barracks empty. And the government takes charge and established itself as the dictator of society. But actually, it's quite the opposite. The new despotism is going to be chosen by the people. They're the ones who are going to ask for it. They're going to beg for it. And they're going to do everything they can to bring it about. Now, it's not, the people don't do that consciously. It's not like Amanda's saying to Kate, hey, let's form a committee and lobby so we can create a new despotism that will reduce us to infants. Consciously, nobody sees that. But what happens is this. People keep wanting government to expand, do a little more, solve this problem, eliminate that inequality, help me with this situation that I can't cope with by myself. And they want government to become more centralized too, so we can all be truly equal. So the new despotism is created sort of accidentally. Nobody intends it. Nobody votes for it. There's no referendum saying, would you like government to reduce you to the level of a sheep? But it is created by people constantly asking government to do more, to help more, to solve more problems, to meet more wants. So the new despotism actually voted into existence. There are elections and people vote for the politicians who want government to do more. They vote against politicians who want government to do less. And gradually over time, this new despotism comes into being. But when it comes into being, you know what, it's brought about democratically. Once it's brought into being, democracy stops. It ends, it's terminated. Not because government says, no more elections, we're in charge here. It's terminated because people don't care. When was the last time you saw a sheep demand a vote on who its shepherd was? Okay? And small children all love their mommy, right? So, this soft despotism gradually comes into being, but once it's in being, the elections stop. And not that they're not allowed, but nobody cares. Why bother? How many of you were at Dr. Pastrito's lecture the other night?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, at least 2 of you, right? Shame on the rest of you, by the way. But, are you duly shamed?
No, we were outside of this slide.
Okay, you were doing your job then. But in an indirect way to think about, this is what he was talking about. Because what he's talking about is a situation where most of the governmental decisions are made by bureaucrats. They're made in the bureaucracy. Congress stops enacting laws. It just identifies problems and says to the bureaucracy, address this problem. Create some rules and regulations to solve this difficulty. And as you reach a point where there's almost no point in voting because it doesn't affect the election, because whoever you elect, whichever party, they just say bureaucracy, do your thing, and then they go to sleep.
It's a changing of hands, not a changing of ideas.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. So that's the scoop, and we just learned something. What was our thesis? Democratic social conditions over the long run can threaten political democracy, individual freedom, and human dignity. Told you it takes some time, but I've just told you why Tocqueville thinks that. We're just right now seeing how political democracy dies at the hands of the soft despotism. of the omnicompetent nanny state. We've just seen individual freedom go bye-bye because all these rules, all these regulations limit individual freedom, limit people's ability to act. And since the rules and regulations are endless, it's kind of like, Gulliver Travels, right? The guy on the beach tied down by all these little people. People end up tied down by these little bureaucratic rules and regulations. And we've seen how it challenges human dignity because it won't let people become human adults. It treats them like infants or like sheep. So it's an affront to human dignity. So we've just kind of seen why Tocqueville is worried about where democracy could take us. Now, the obvious question here, and I know you're all thinking it, so I'll voice it for you so you don't all speak at once and drown each other out. We're having fun here, aren't we?
Yeah.
Light temper here. Is this inevitable? Democratic social conditions tend to foster these attitudes. These attitudes tend to cause government to become more centralized and expand in its scope. And government growing more centralized and expanding in its scope produces the new despotism. So it sounds almost like this is preordained. It is going to happen. There's nothing that can be done about it. It's tempting to draw that as the lesson, which is why at the end of the book, Tocqueville pauses and said, hey guys, that's not what I'm saying at all. I am warning you about a danger. Now that you're warned, now you know what the danger is. You can take steps to avoid it. You can do things to prevent this from happening. Tocqueville's saying, I've told you what happens if you do nothing. But you don't have to do nothing. You can do something. And if you act, you could prevent this from happening. Let me just find a passage here. It's around. Here it is, 702. I am on the third full paragraph on 702. If, says Tocqueville, I believe this was inevitable, I would never have written the book which you have just read, but would have contented myself with mourning in secret over the fate of my fellows. I have sought to expose the perils with which equality threatens human freedom, because I firmly believe that those dangers are both the most formidable and the least foreseen of those which the future has in store. But I do not think they aren't insurmountable. Skipping a paragraph. Let us then look forward to the future with that salutary fear which makes men keep watch, and not with the flabby idle terror which makes men's hearts sink and enervates them. And then over on page 705, the very last page on the book. I'll just read you the concluding paragraph. There are 3 or 4 relevant paragraphs leading up to it. The nations of our day cannot prevent conditions of equality from spreading, but it depends upon themselves whether equality is to lead to servitude or freedom, knowledge or barbarism, prosperity or wretchedness. We say, okay, we can act, we can do something. What is that? What is it that we can do? What do we do next? We don't want the new despotism, democracies, inevitable. What steps do we take? Tocqueville says he can't really tell you that because each society is different. Each society is unique. But he wants you to reflect on America and what he sees as the success of American democracy. Tocqueville doesn't believe that America is perfect. If you read the whole book, there are a lot of criticisms. Having said that, Tocqueville believes America on the whole has done well. We live in an imperfect world, and by the standards of government, America has done an amazingly good job. Okay? So we can look to America to get a sense of what type of things do not necessarily copy them, but get a sense of what are the sort of things that can help out here. As he says on Roman numeral page 14, way back when, early in the book, the problem we're worrying about, he says, which is, remember, what is his project? Make democracy safe for the world. Enable democracy to be a blessing, not a curse. In America, democracy is imperfect, but it is indeed a blessing. So look at America, again, not necessarily to copy, but to be inspired, encouraged. Roman numeral page 4, middle paragraph. This problem making democracy succeed, newly posed for us, was solved in America 60 years ago. Americans know what they're doing. And then let me try to find another quote here. Where is it? No, I will read your quote because I just don't want to take the time and stuff. It's on 474:18. He talks about the success of America again. How we can learn, we French people, remember that's his main audience, what we can learn from America. Well, why has American democracy been so successful, you ask? What have Americans done right that have prevented them from sliding towards the new despotism? Okay, that is the question. Okay, now, before giving you a handy-dandy list of 3 things America's done right, just a preliminary note to know, in part, America's success is due to our intelligence. The Founding Fathers knew what they were doing. They were really smart statesmen. But much of it is due to, a lot of it's simply due to dumb luck. America was fortunate in certain respects. For one thing, we weren't like Europe in this tiny little country, surrounded by other countries we're almost always on the brink of war with. So hence needing a huge military, and et cetera, et cetera. But here are 3 choices Americans made, as it were. 3 things Americans have done. They're not. The first is decentralized government. You remember, America has a very decentralized political system. We have different levels of government. Okay, and let's just say, for argument's sake, we'll call them city, state, and federal government. Each state, we have a decentralized system of government. He says where most political decisions, most political action occurs at the lower levels of government. We have an extremely decentralized form of government. Now, in part, that came about accidentally. There's simply, remember we talked about this, the patterns of settlement. You had these isolated little towns that found they couldn't make it on their own. So they started establishing alliances with other little towns. And eventually these alliances became more formal and whatnot, and gradually you built up the whole thing. America started at the town level. It wasn't top down. So he says the following about the federal government. The federal government, on page, 61. In the second paragraph. America has a complex constitution. There are two distinct social structures connected, and as it were, encased one within the other. One finds two completely separate and almost independent governments. The one is the ordinary, undefined government, which provides for the daily needs of society, while the other is exceptional and circumscribed and only concerned with certain general interests. In a word, there are 24 little sovereign nations who together form the United States. Skipping down a little bit. The federal government was in the next paragraph, federal government was the last shape in the United States. Skipping down, moreover, as I said, the federal government is something of an exception, whereas the government in each state is the normal authority, so on and so forth. Okay, so America started out as a decent, with these isolated little towns. They began, allying themselves with one another. But what started off as an accident became a conscious choice. Because when you get to the Constitutional Convention, when you get to the writing of the Constitution, they could, in theory, have created a highly centralized form of government. They did not. They decided on decentralization. We're not going to strip towns of their authority. We're not going to strip states of their authority. And the federal government, the national government, will have a very limited portfolio of things. It won't do much. Just a few broad things that require some centralized authority. I mean, in Tocqueville's day, you know what the main function of the federal government was? Anyone know?
To collect taxes.
No, they were,
Currency.
no, although they didn't make currency, and that's,
Military.
I couldn't hear you.
The military.
The military was so tiny, the states had much bigger militias than the national army. No, its main thing was, get this, delivering mail. Now, that sounds like silly, but think of what America was like in those days. Mail was the only way you could communicate with people. And you had this vast, sprawling country, you're traveling by horseback in all kinds of weather. There are very, very few roads. The federal government gets involved. We're going to build roads so the mail can be delivered. Read the Constitution. To establishing post roads and post offices.
There's a postmaster general
Yes.
in office, yeah.
There still technically is, but in those days he was practically like the president. That was a very powerful position. Remember as late as the Civil War, when you knocked on the White House door, who opened the door? Might very well have been Abraham Lincoln, because the White House staff was 3 people, 2 assistants and him. So if the assistants were doing stuff, you'd leave the Oval Office and go open the door and say, how are you doing? No, we don't need to buy any encyclopedias today. Thank you very much. So the old encyclopedia salesman goes door to door. Okay. Back in Tocqueville's day, some people would not run for president because the job was too insignificant. You're more powerful as a governor. That's where the power lay. Then as a president, the president was kind of like a chief clerk, signing a lot of paperwork and stuff, but very little in the way of money, resources, very little in the way of power at his disposal. So America chooses to have this very decentralized government. And that, he thinks, is of pivotal importance. Wish I could read my handwriting here. They tell me to say something is important, but I don't see what it is. Well, how did this decentralized government, how did that contribute to the success of American democracy? In two ways, for our purposes. Way number one is these strong, vibrant, powerful local governments acted as a check on the higher levels of government. These local levels acted as a check on the higher levels of government. The governors were not going to let the national government have powers that the state governments had. They weren't going to give them up without a fight. The towns aren't going to let the state governments take over their affairs. So it actually acted as a check on centralization, because each level of government was very jealous and didn't want the level above them meddling in their affairs or usurping their powers and prerogatives. So Tocqueville says on page 96, at the very bottom of the page, he's talking about the importance of decentralized government. He says, how can liberty be preserved in great matters among a multitude that has never learned to use it in small ones? How can tyranny be resisted in a country where each individual is weak? I have lived through a lot of presidents. When I was born, Dwight Eisenhower was president. So let's see, we had Eisenhower, Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, Carter, Reagan, first Bush, Clinton, second Bush, Obama, and Trump. Oh, Biden, forgetting Biden. That's okay, he's forgotten who was president too. Biden and then Trump. Well, Trump, Biden, Trump. Not one of those presidents, I think it's safe to say, ever gave a moment of thought to what Ken Grasso thinks. No president woke up in the morning and said, holy cow, should I really go ahead with this without asking Grasso what his opinion of? I am absolutely powerless against the government of the United States. But there's strength in numbers, there's strength in organization. What this decentralized government gave you was organizations that were powerful and could exert an influence, and that the central government had to worry about. So they provide strength in numbers, they provide organized vehicles for resistance to centralization. But the second thing they do is even more important than the first. Second thing they do is even more important than the first. And that is they instill public spiritedness. This system of local governments works to instill public spiritedness.
Is that the same as civic amity, or is that a little different?
That's a little different. It's still public spirited. In a democracy, people are prone to individualism and consumerism. That means tune out. Government and politics become unreal, distant, make-believe. Tocqueville believes this decentralized system of government created public-spirited people. And that is critically important to success in democracy. It acted as a check on individualism. It acted as a check on consumerism. But the question is, why is decentralized government, why local government? Why does it do this? How does it do this? And I always like to use a little scenario we can play out. Are we ready to play out our scenario?
Yeah.
Okay. I wake up in the morning, I'll make myself the central character. And I go to pull out of my driveway. And on the way out of my driveway, leaving at 7:10 this morning to drive my kid to school, I hit a big pothole and I spill my Diet Mountain Dew all over my dress pants and shirt. I am not pleased about that, especially since that's the third time this has happened in the last 2 weeks. And now I'm going to have to go back and change clothes before I get to work, which means I'll have trouble finding a parking space in Wood Street. Okay? So I am unhappy with this. And I say, damn it, I'm sick of this. I pay taxes. I'm not going to sit back and take it anymore. I'm going to get action. Are you with me? So I'm now going to get action. I take out my telephone and say, grab my phone with you. We all carry our phones around with us. And let me stipulate, for purposes of our example, we live in an extremely centralized system of government in which all the big decisions are made in the nation's capital. So what's the number I call to get action on the streets? It's an 800 number, 1-800-FIX-ROAD. That did work, I was right. 1-800-FIX-ROAD. It rings a couple times. Where does it ring? It picks up in the nation's capital, 2,000 miles away from me. And it picks up in an office building that houses 10,000 federal workers who specialize in roads. So it rings, picks up, now I'm happy I will get action. But instead of action, you know what I get? Voicemail. Hello, this is the Department of Roads, located at blah, 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 serving you since, blah, blah, blah. We are here to serve and help you. Please listen carefully to the following prompts. If you live in the state of Rhode Island, press 1. If you live in the state of Massachusetts, press 2. Texas comes in around 40-something. So I listen, Texas at last. Next step. Which county of Texas do you live in? And then I can listen to the list of counties. We get to good old Hayes County. I hit a button, and it wants to know where in Hayes County I live. Again, more prompts. So I sit here for a half hour, making my way through this voicemail, listening to these endless series of prompts. And at the end, what happens? Please hold on. We have heavy call volume today. An operator will be with you shortly. After another half hour, what do? Hang up. Am I a happy camper? Does this make me like government? Does this make me want to have anything to do ever again with government? That kind of system encourages tuning out. It doesn't know me. It doesn't care about me. I can't exert any influence on it. To it, I'm not even an ant. I'm a gnat. Okay. So that creates passivity, avoidance, hatred of government, cynicism. I pay all these taxes and this is how they treat me. Let's vary our scenario. I'm living in an extremely decentralized system. So I call in my town or city the Department of Roads, which is only located about 3 miles from where I live. Phone call picks up, what department do you want? Roads. Secretary picks up, how can I help you, sir? I say, I've got a problem. I got this huge pothole on Old Highland Drive. Okay, I need to get it fixed. I'm not going to break my axle one of these days. I really don't understand why it's not fixed already. Oh, you want to talk to Bob? He's the guy who handles the potholes for the town. And maybe I get Bob on the phone. And if I get Bob on the phone, that may be really not, I can talk to a human being who actually has some authority over it, who can actually make something happen. And it's a small town. When I tell him I have a pothole on Highland Drive, you know what he says? Hey, do you know Arnie Leader? Oh yeah, Arnie's an old friend of mine. And before you know it, we're taking a trip down memory lane, because Dr. Leader lives indeed a few houses from me. Okay? And, or let's pretend he goes to voicemail because Bob's a busy guy, he works.
You'll go away in a second.
Okay. Did I mention I hate electronic gizmos? I mean, did it just get slightly dimmer or are my eyes
They
going?
turned off the light. It's right there.
Okay.
Projector turned
Okay.
Right to you.
I'm glad. Okay, it deserves it. In any case, Bob, I have to leave a voicemail for Bob, but Bob's likely to call me back later that day or the next day. Why? Well, all sorts of reasons. He's a devoted civil servant. It's a small town. It turns out we might know each other in passing or have friends in common. And most importantly of all, this is the real secret. I know where Bob works. I know where Bob's office is. And the one thing Bob doesn't want is to roll into work at 8 o'clock one morning and find an angry taxpayer sitting on his couch, eating a donut, preparing to begin yelling. So, let me even complicate my example here. I'm going to complicate it. Let's pretend when I talk to Bob, Bob tells me, I'd love to help you, but here's the problem. I have a budget. I spent my entire budget for the year. I can't fix any more potholes until I have more funding. And I say, come on, one little pothole. Surely you can help me out. Bob says, I'll give you some advice. I work for the city council. They're the ones who won't give me more money. I keep asking. Those stingy SOBs keep saying no. Talk to the city council. How do I do that, Bob? Bob said, well, they're right over there on Hopkins Street. Every other Tuesday night, they have a meeting. Part of it is open mic for the public to go in and make a request. You just come down to a meeting, you yell at these people, and they'll give you a little bit of money and we'll fix your pothole and we'll both live happily ever after. I'm a little nervous about going downtown, City Hall. So I knock on a couple doors and chat with my neighbors. People I barely know because living in a democratic society, individualism and consumerism pervade the whole thing. But we have a common interest uniting us now. The common interest is they're hitting the pothole too, and they're just as ticked as me. Before you know it, 3 people agree to go down to the council meeting with me. Before you know it, another 20 say, well, I'm not going to a meeting, but when we sign a petition, I'll sign a petition. So I show up with my 3 new buddies, give them the petition, berate them for a little bit. And what happens, they give Bob the money to make me shut up and go away. And the next day, Bob and I are standing there eating donuts, watching the workmen fix the pothole. But then a thought occurs to me. That was easy. And that was kind of cool. I got results and it improved my life. You know what else would improve my life? Sidewalks. Why don't I have sidewalks? The neighborhood, this side of me has sidewalks. The one on that side of me has sidewalks. The one way up there has sidewalks. I have no sidewalks. That isn't fair, is it? Why should they get it, not me? Before you know it, I ring some doorbells, and another petition emerges. And some people go down to a meeting again. And before you know it, we get our sidewalks, and this is really cool. We're getting stuff, and it's relatively easy. We need to keep this up on an ongoing basis. Let's form a neighborhood association. Let's have a monthly meeting where we talk about concerns, and let's designate someone to attend council meetings. You with me? So it encourages me to be public spirited. Now, what motivated me in getting involved? Self-interest, right? I was looking out for me. I wasn't upset because my neighbors hit this pothole. I was upset because I kept hitting the pothole. But so I become involved out of self-interest. But as I begin to get to know my neighbors and to think in terms of a neighborhood and to realize that improvements are possible and relatively easy, my whole attitude shifts. And I become engaged. Pretty soon I'm president of the neighborhood association, or the secretary who's sent down to all the council meetings or whatever. What starts as a matter of self-interest over time becomes something more. It becomes habitual, and it becomes kind of a matter of commitment. I acquire a sense of ownership. This is my neighborhood. I and the other neighbors, it belongs to us. We have to take care of it. We have to see that it gets what we need. A sense of ownership, a sense of engagement. I'm not just someone who lives in a certain house. I'm part of a neighborhood that's part of a town. This whole scenario encourages engagement and participation. It builds that way public spiritedness. Some passages here. Let's see what they are. Notes say page 70. Talk about New England here, using that as an example of this decentralized system and the importance of townships. The New Englander is attached to his township because it is strong and independent. He has an interest in it because he shares in its management. He loves it because he has no reason to complain of his lot. He invests his ambition and his future in it. In the restricted sphere within his scope, he learns to rule society. He gets to know those formalities without which freedom can advance only through revolutions. And becoming imbued with their spirit develops a taste for order, understands the harmony of powers, and in the end accumulates clear, practical ideas about the nature of his duty and the extent of his rights. And then let's see another passage. Where is it? It's in the 90s. Okay, page 93. He contrasts America with Europe. This last paragraph on 93. There are countries in Europe where the inhabitant feels like some sort of farm laborer, indifferent to the fate of the place where he dwells. The greatest changes may take place in his country without his concurrence. He does not even know precisely what has happened. He is in doubt. He is heard tell by chance of what goes on. Worse still, the condition of his village, the policing of his road, and the repair of his church and parsonage do not concern him. He thinks that all those things have nothing at all to do with him, but belong to a powerful stranger called government. For his part, he enjoys what he has as a tenant, without feeling of ownership or any thought of improvement. His detachment from his own fate goes so far that if his own safety or that of his children is in danger, instead of trying to ward off the peril, he crosses his arms and waits for the whole nation to come to aid him. Furthermore, this man who is so completely sacrificed his freedom of will does not like obedience more than the next man. He submits, it is true, to the caprice of the clerk, but as soon as force is withdrawn, he will flaunt his triumph over the law as over a conquered foe. Thus he oscillates the whole time between civility and license, between civility and license. So when European countries are extremely centralized, that causes them to tune out. It encourages extreme passivity because they can't really influence things because all the decisions are made far away in a central government. They have no reason to be engaged. They have no reason to really care about their community because they can't really do anything to improve it. They have no sense of ownership. Everything belongs to the government. I just happen to live it. So like being a homeowner, you want your home to be nice, right? And you try to improve it. And if something breaks, you try to fix it. My case, I just call my sons because they're good at that stuff and I'm terrible. But imagine you're staying in a hotel and you're saying, do you say to yourself, Sal, how can I improve this hotel? Let me make a list of ideas to make it better. You're just passing through. You're spending a couple nights. You don't belong to it. It doesn't, you have no sense of ownership or belonging. It's other people's concern, other people's affair. Decentralized government imbues people with public spiritedness. Public spiritedness acts to counteract individualism and consumerism. And what is it that ultimately gives you the new despotism? Individualism, consumerism, and the other attitudes. So this sort of nips it at the base, at the root. Okay? If individualism pushes us into the new despotism, this system of decentralized government reduces individualism by imbuing public spiritedness, and hence reduces the drift into the new despotism. If you can keep the attitudes from becoming too pronounced, because remember, they're what push you into the new despotism. If you keep the attitudes relatively weak, you can avoid the new despotism. If you want another metaphor, they're the locomotive that pulls the train of the new despotism. Disable the attitudes. The train doesn't move. Fair enough? We more or less awake? My one says 2 after. Let us take a break until 1/4 after. And we shall return. And I repeat, we will get to religion today. We're close. I almost kept you right up to that, but I think people need a break. Meeting. Go home. Oh, yeah.
Can I get your autograph on my committee paper?
Sure. Here we go. Feel better, Amanda.
This folder is fighting for its life.
I've been watching a show called Fallout. Oh, it's good. Have you watched the new show yet? Yeah, it's a Night of the Second Show.
Right.
It's about Pumpkin, that's all.
I didn't watch House of Dragon either though.
I also did not watch that.
House of Dragon is really good. I like the show, except it's really slow. And they've spent basically every episode that they have so far at the same turn of events. And the episodes are only 30 minutes long. So like right as you get to the good part, it's like, oh no, we're done.
Yeah. And the next episode you think you're gonna get to that part, but then it's like, no, there's a bunch.
It's the only annoying part, but it's a good show besides that.
Have you guys taken any of Sanchez's classes?
Yeah.
What does he expect for presentations?
What? Oh, well.
I had a presentation
Yeah.
class. I got 9. Give us the guidelines.
Yeah, he didn't give me any guidelines. I'm like,
It's not insane.
so I had like obviously visuals, but
Yeah. I
uh,
think honestly, like pretty standard. It's not like he's like expecting more than like a normal class's presentation.
he did tell us not to use note cards,
Yeah.
and I was like, damn.
But I think I can show you.
Try those terms that you talked about in class.
Oh, I'm 100% gonna do that.
Is yours about authoritarianism and stuff?
No, democracy in Latin America.
Oh, okay.
Ariana Sanchez?
Just me.
I took him last semester.
Yeah, because he didn't give any guidelines for the presentation.
Yeah.
I've got to do tomorrow, and I'm just gonna make it tonight. Oh, just no visuals. That's fine.
I keep trying to catch your eye, and you're never looking at me.
Like this one I did for his turkey presentation.
I'm doing like an assignment.
And it was just like, it was a flash sheet, but
Logged in.
yeah, it's not like crazy amount of like information.
When are we doing brunch again?
Right.
Right?
Right,
Right.
right, right.
Like, this is not like any
Where do
crazy.
you usually eat at?
This is not any crazy.
Where do I eat at? What?
I think I
Yeah.
got like a negative on this.
What's that?
It's a lunch place, it's right by the new.
Oh, yeah.
It skips.
Bungee, please.
I don't feel like
No.
I'm too crazy on it either.
Oh, yeah, that's good. I just went to one of those.
You have lunch at work.
Dude, they have like unlimited coffee, that shit's, so the vibe. Such a
Mario
vibe.
Gathering.
No,
Well,
I
I was
hate
just prepared
I hate
because
when
they
people
were
stand
talking
behind
like it
me.
here, so.
First lunch. I don't know Italian or brunch places.
I know it seems hostile.
That's
there.
one of Austin.
Understand.
There's root cellar.
Oh, yeah, she got
Yeah. We should go there.
Patio.
Do it. Patio? You guys have brunch? No, exactly.
We don't. I don't know what you.
I've just been working on my thesis the whole time you talk.
We might be getting into something new.
We're trying.
What shit left?
I just don't know what weekend would be the best.
You've done a lot.
I've got a lot.
Not this one.
What? I cannot hear you. Shut up.
Are y'all available
Sound like
next
you're wearing
weekend?
high heels.
Yes.
I am.
Who's your favorite philosopher?
Potentially even on Saturday. Honestly, it can be on
Huh?
Saturdays.
Gilles Deleuze.
What?
Yeah.
Do they make
Probably.
you taller? Should we?
That or like Nietzsche, but that's it's like every it's every edgelord has to say that, but
No,
Well,
Are you Jake?
famous people or
Do you
famous
want to
words?
look? You can pull up the.
yeah, that is true.
Yes.
That is true.
That's the dilemma.
I thought we just,
Yeah, on Friday.
Next Friday.
What's on
Hold on, let me check my calendar.
it? See, that's what I'm saying.
There's a lot of French philosophers that have put out bangers. Jacques Ellul, very good one.
He's
Um,
an anarchist Christian.
Yeah.
Yes, I know
Maybe it
him.
would probably help if I-
Um,
at this point.
I like that the French aren't as like dogmatic as like I hate that like postmodernism has gotten a bad name.
The French.
Because I-
just have really weird personal lives.
Yeah, of course, yeah, they're French, yeah.
They're good philosophers.
But like I find like a lot of American like intellectuals are very like dogmatic and rigid to a certain set of like meta narratives and like
11?
scripts, I guess. And I like that the French have
I'm
more
writing
freedom
it
of
down.
maneuver to
Planner, that's so cute.
kind of examine everything, and I think that's
What?
20th.
20th.
that's kind of
That's a
nice.
board game.
Let me check if this works for me.
Oh, well, for who? I'm better, because we'll already be in the area.
Yes, yes.
what time is board game? I don't know, I'm not going.
I don't think it's at 11.
What's board game?
Tuesday, or, oh, fucking Christ. Next Friday, they're doing board games in the
The
office.
20th?
Yeah.
I'll come to that. Be fun.
Okay.
You gonna bring board games?
Did you finish this?
Right.
No,
When you get time to get things.
Did you start
What?
it?
I skimmed it.
Okay.
I can bring Risk.
Been having problems with just skimming for that class. To be
Whoa.
honest.
People have to play
Because
Risk.
he, like,
Risk
he will
is
call
simple.
on you, and he'll, like,
Yeah, but-
Risk
but-
is simpler than.
Make you what?
make you
Don't play Axis or whatever. the
Yeah,
fuck.
I mean for sure. But then I just kind of I just
Yeah, you spit it very well, like you.
And you took today.
Yeah, it's like
yeah. Honestly,
Yeah, I just want a cigarette.
this has been a pretty bad semester for my retaining information.
No, because it's like,
My car
how are
is
we gonna
insane.
go over like, it's 167 pages. And you can ask a question about anything in that book. How am I supposed to like retain all that
I'm
info?
gonna walk for lunch.
Doyle?
I can't even remember. To be honest, I skimmed over it very, very fast.
Brand strategy or something.
At this point, I don't even know.
So what are you gonna say?
But I know I don't know it. I know that much. See, I started off drawing, you see me highlighting. By page 4. Really weird.
I keep telling myself it's gonna be my last pack. This is my last
But
pack.
ChatGPT's
Cigarettes?
I told myself-
Oh, you're just saying like summarize it?
See, I told myself
Oh yeah,
that
I did
while I
summarize
had
it,
two
how
packs.
it relates
You
to
should, every time
policy.
you get the urge to buy a pack of cigarettes, take $20 and invest it in something.
Yeah, give it to me.
Cigarettes are not $20.
They're not?
No.
How much are they? 10?
I mean, maybe in like New York City they're like fucking $20, but not
Yeah,
like.
they're, the ones I smoke are like 10.
Yeah, just think about how much money you're gonna be saving.
You know, I started spending all the money that I would spend on alcohol on like other things for myself, and then I realized that I'm just wasting money.
Yes.
So, don't do that. That's why for my 7 months, I'm not buying myself something.
Oh yeah, you were telling me about it. I don't know. Because Isabel tried taking it to the bar. Well, Zelix is that in the bar.
And then she refused. And then she refused.
I got kind of
But why
scared. Though. Why not?
Because I am an alcoholic and I want to smoke a cigarette outside.
But what about like nephews?
Or
What
with
about
myself.
top of wildfire? I don't know. I'm just
Nephews is
scared in
fine.
general.
No, no, because this one was refused.
No, you do Xanax, then you do
Oh.
those.
That was rude.
I just pick it up at the house.
What?
You can't
I was
start
there.
it there.
I got scared.
Well,
Well,
by
we didn't really say anything
All
else.
for it.
Huh?
You got scared of
Yeah.
Well, I
Xanax?
didn't get scared because it's a
Pregame.
bar. It was, I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a new experience. I don't know.
Xanax is so chill though.
Those
Yeah.
are chill.
It's the only place I go.
Logies is not bad.
I like Louise. They have good deals.
I don't drink, that's the problem.
Oh.
We need to
What?
just sit in a bench and smoke.
I'm
Ever.
6 months sober, brother, okay?
Oh my god. They started selling cigarettes that are actually bubbles.
Yeah, I still do that shit all the time, and they get me every single
But I don't
time.
need it. I don't need it. But I just,
I'm
I just
proud
want
of
to feel like I'm part of something.
Me too, I said that.
Thank you. Again, no frame of reference, but
Yes.
thank you.
I think it's a
I don't drink any
no,
more.
bro. What's
I don't
what's
drink
this
any
like
less.
cocaine girl?
I was like, bitch.
It's like, I used to do drugs. I still do, but I used to too.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that one.
I just go somewhere, so we're so busy.
I'm gonna write that down for Joy's of my week.
Okay. Bitch Hedberg, really?
Have you never heard that before?
I have not. That's why I'm writing it down on Joys of the Week.
Dude, I have sticky notes everywhere from things that I be reading or people
I get
saying.
some of the best ideas for my thesis when I'm drinking.
Do you wanna know what my best friend
This
said?
thesis
when-
is about anarchy.
I wrote my best paper.
No, it's about anarchism.
That part.
Anarchy
Is
is
it like a
the.
focus or is it just anarchism?
It's about one theory
Ooh, which one is
of
that?
anarchy.
What's the
You wanna
theory
hear a
called?
joke?
It's, well, it's still called anarchism,
Have you
but
tried
it's
it
the legal
now?
maladjust of anarchy.
Oh, I'm kind of fearful, like, I know I'm not allergic, but.
That's the one thing about anarchists is that they never
I'm
think
just
the
gonna get out of my
same.
next class.
They all have different, like
What's your next class?
Marxists and, you know, libertarians, they all have roughly the same ideas about
Oh,
things.
yeah, you don't
There's
need
no
to.
cohesion.
I mean,
That's okay.
What are you gonna do?
Did you like the
I went
meat
to the
book? Or?
doctor's the other day.
oh yeah, I actually did my presentation on that.
I'm in the doctor's
Right,
office, he just like a routine exam,
I feel
and
like
like
you
midway
should do
through, he tells me, hey, you gotta stop.
I took that class over the summer,
That's
And I was like,
which is no, it's worse. Because he gives
Why?
he gives you
Says
3
so I can
books
finish
and
these?
says one
Dude.
week for meat,
My
1 week
best friend,
1 week
my dad
Friday,
was his
and then
doctor.
you're done.
Just
So
felt his walls.
just a lot of effort.
What did the leper say to the
No.
prostitute? Keep the tip.
I'm writing that one down.
My best friend on brunch, she was like, you know, because God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers, not to flex or anything.
I don't not like it.
This could be like a healthy
She did,
alternative.
and I thought it was so funny, I had to write it down in my notes.
But
Don't you
like
have
$3.99
one of my
for
quotes
like
in your notes?
No,
It's ridiculous.
Daryl has one of my quotes in
I'm
her.
just
I have
sour.
your quotes. Your quotes usually get written in my journal.
It's not bad.
But they kind of woke me up with it.
I can't think of any jokes right now.
Like funny ones or?
Jokes? I can tell you a joke.
Well, I'm not gonna.
All the jokes I wanna say are inappropriate.
Are you
It's
prepared?
not bad. It's just.
This one is really funny.
I didn't expect it
My
to
last
taste so
two
bad.
jokes.
We need to close the door for it.
No, of course
It's
not.
almost like a.
Yeah.
Ready?
Let's see if this is actually a joke.
Lucas Getman.
And I can still taste the hair, like.
See if
Wait, is your name Lucas?
No.
Oh.
You can call me Lucas.
Last name Getman? That's actually hilarious.
I was thinking about it the other day when she was talking about people
Oh,
named
fire.
last names are like Baker or Smith or whatever, like indicated back in the day your profession. It's like that's ironic about my.
Yeah, I'll taste another one too.
Yeah.
You know what? It's even funnier given context too.
What's your middle name?
Windsor.
It doesn't taste like after each other, so I guess it's.
No, you don't look like a Windsor.
If you eat it from the backside, it's not as strong.
You couldn't go by that. It's like, does she look like an Olivia?
Which one?
Pretty sure it does.
Pick one. I don't know.
They're both
I know all
both
women
look
look the
higher
same to you,
middle,
Luke. Okay.
Oh,
I know all women look the same to you.
that's true.
We do both go by our middle names.
Yeah.
Crazy. Olivia is my name, not hers.
You can pass us an Olivia.
I don't think so.
You can pass us an Olivia. What's that show? Isn't there like a kid show called Olivia?
Yeah, like the pig.
Yeah.
Big. But it's not a show, it's a book series.
No.
They made it into a
Just
show.
because you wrote it.
It's on
Sorry guys,
Junior.
just
You're
because you're
wrong,
both
don't
pale.
I am very pale.
Me too. I'm probably paler than you are.
Wrong. I don't think so.
Okay, well not on my arm, but like.
This is a weird like.
Hey, but it makes me great for tattoos. My tattoos are dark.
No, that's why I think tattoos look better on tan skin.
Thank you.
The top of my arms are tan because of my freckles.
Yeah, well, I'm pale. We gotta get the right color paint, the right color.
You just have to get a good tattoo artist who knows what they're
Well, but
doing.
it all fades out to the same thing, cause like they start as like blue black and then they fade to just black.
Yeah, I don't like the blue.
It goes away.
Do you have any tattoos?
Would you get any?
There, yes.
They only cost you your soul.
On my body.
Twinsies.
How much in total? For me. Oh, I couldn't tell you. It's also the same thing when people ask how many tattoos I've had. They've all started to connect. So it's like,
After a certain point, you stop counting. It doesn't matter.
yeah.
Guys, I can't count.
It's just like
Less than
people who don't have tattoos will be like, man, you have a lot of tattoos, and that's wrong. You don't understand the metric because like people who have a lot of tattoos are like, what?
My mom likes taking people tattoos.
Oh, man. So you mean I'm never gonna meet your mom?
She thinks you're like trashy and like low class if you have tattoos.
You know what? Your mom's
My
right about
parents
me.
think the same thing.
My parents think like you should be able to cover up like a work shirt, so like that.
But that's not the point of a tattoo. The point of a tattoo is to have it.
I don't think you need any tattoos.
Debatable.
I don't know, I think you own your own body.
But until
Nope,
you start
you do
getting
not
on
own your own body.
hands and, like, your
The government
face and
owns your
stuff,
body.
Everything's
I
covered.
like Rihanna's. I don't know if you've seen her hands. Or it's just, I have not.
That's why I got hand tattoos because Ariana Grande had hand
Hers
tattoos.
is cute.
So I was like, if Ari has them, I can have them.
But
It's
it also
fine.
depends on your profession if you can be a person with hand tattoos.
That's very true. Most secondary schools don't allow you to show your tattoos.
Yeah.
You know-
I think that stipulation will go away after 2
The
generations.
only danger of having kids see your
We
tattoos
have
are them
professional people with
going,
face tattoos.
did you know that red tattoos cause cancer? And then you go, yeah, I've heard that, but I don't care. And then they go, okay, but I just wanted you to know.
Wait, tattoos or red tattoos?
Ready,
I
ready.
think there's higher chances of cancer, but all tattooing increases your chances of skin cancer, right?
Really?
Did you know that having Crohn's disease increases your chance of colorectal cancer every 10 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have red ink. This is crazy. I'm gonna black.
Mountain Dew, which Dr. Grasso drinks a lot, has been proven to increase.
No, Grasso drinks Diet Mountain Dew. It's
Only the
different.
diet.
It's
yes.
different.
Mountain Dew is terrible.
Diet is non-carcinogenic.
I'm sure the diet is
It
supposed to
just
be bad.
doesn't matter with everything.
Did you know that 100% of the humans who've been born have died though? Like,
Except for one.
who? Oh. He still died.
Hold
That's
on.
like a big part of the story.
Hold on, none of us have died.
Yet.
Yeah, but none of us have died, so.
Statistically,
Maybe we'll all
though.
be immortal.
Oh, God, no.
I wouldn't count on it, but yeah, I guess hypothetically. In any case, let us swing back into business. Now, Amanda left. I do want to hand out the assignments. I want to lecture a little more. So somebody stop me at 10 after, and we'll talk about paper topics and stuff. So I'll end our discussion of decentralized government with a quote I meant to read you. It's on page 68. Under the spirit of the township in New England. In America, not only do municipal institutions exist, but there is also a municipal spirit which sustains and gives them life. The New England Township combines two advantages which, wherever they are found, keenly excite men's interest. Their independence and power. It acts, it is true, within a sphere beyond which it cannot pass. But within that domain, its movements are free. The independence alone would give a real importance not warranted by size or population. It is important to appreciate that, in general, men's affections are drawn only in directions where power exists. Patriotism does not long prevail in a conquered country. The New Englander is attached to his township, not so much because he was born there as because he sees the township as a free, strong corporation of which he is part and which it is worth the trouble of trying to own or direct. And then over in 69, first full paragraph on the page, the New England Township is shaped to form the nucleus of strong attachments. Okay? Item number 2 on our handy dandy list. Again, what is this a list of? Why he thinks Tocqueville's American democracy has worked, why we haven't slid towards the new despotism. Second, well, let me just read your quote rather than giving it to you. Fine, okay, got it. 513. The last two paragraphs on the page. Okay, well, yeah, last two paragraphs of it. In the United States, political associations are only one small part of the immense number of different types of associations found there. Americans of all ages, all stations in life, and all types of disposition are forever forming associations. There are not only commercial and industrial associations in which all take part, but others of 1,000 different types: religious, moral, serious, feudal, very general and very limited, dimension, large and very minute. Americans combine to found cemeteries, build churches, distribute books, send missionaries. Hospitals and prisons and schools take shape in that way. Finally, if they want to proclaim a truth or propagate some feeling by the encouragement of a great example, they form an association. In every case, at the head of any new undertaking, where in France you would find the government, or in England some territorial magnate, in the United States you are sure to find an association. That's another one of the most famous passages in the book. One of the things that strikes Tocqueville when he gets to America is the rich associational life. I mean, he means groups, committees, institutes. Americans always forming these little organizations. Some of them may be national, most are local. But organization upon organization upon organization upon organization. And Americans sort of take this for granted. Well, that's what you do. But he says, I bring a different point from France, and it's not what you did, what you per se, what people per se do. It's what America does. Americans have this genius for self-organization. They have a gift for organizing themselves to accomplish things. They are joiners, not in the sense of passively lending their name to someone's mailing list, but in the sense of active membership, of going to meetings, of contributing money, of really involving themselves in this rich matrix of associational life. And there's nothing comparable, really, he says, in France. In France, when there's something that needs to be done, or some problem that needs to be solved, people immediately go to the government. They say, government, there's a need here, there's a problem, you must address it, do something. In Britain, when people see there's a need for something or a problem they have to address, in Britain, they go to the local aristocrat, the guy in the big house who owns all the land. And they say, your lordship, we need help. Look at this need, look at this problem. Please solve it. Please put it, address this. In America, people don't do that. When they see a problem, they generally don't bug the government. What they do is they form a committee. They knock on some doors, they pass out some flyers. And before you know it, an organization is built, and the organization goes on to tackle things. So, you're living in a small town in America in 1825. There's no school in the town. Well, you don't go to the mayor, say, Mayor, we have no school. You don't write the governor or write the president. You form a school committee, and people start contributing money and supplies. The local lumber yard contributes the wood. Local hardware guy contributes the nails. And you do it yourself. I mean, it's a do-yourself ethic, but not in the sense of the individual. It's the individual as part of a group that's alive, that's organized, that's vibrant. And this, Tim, is one of the most striking things about America. And frankly, he doesn't understand it. He tells you at the end of the chapter, I don't know why Americans are like this. He has some ideas of things that may be factoring in. But this is something worth really thinking about. Because these groups these associations, whatever you want to call them, are crucially important. The question, Ella Jane?
I mean, I was just gonna say what you were talking about reminded me, and they basically did what you were talking about. The Black Panthers breakfast group for usually like black kids, because they would go to the stores, they would get the food. Maybe I guess there's debate over how ethical they got the food, but they got it donated. And then they brought it to the kids, gave it to the kids so they would go to school fed, and taught kids about their culture and history that morning, and then sent them off, like, watched to make sure that no one, like, harassed the kids to go to school, but, like, would take them to school, too.
Yeah, that would be an example, but it's, even Taylor, we're full of these examples, right? Isn't there a town here in San Marcos, like, home where I live now? Isn't there a San Marcos Little League? Isn't there a Pee Wee Football League? Don't we have veterans of foreign wars and the Lions Club do karate tubing down for the river and League of Women Voters? You just go on and on and on. PTAs, example of an association. So America just have this gift for association. You don't have to. They just sort of seem to do it. And he thinks that is tremendously significant. Why? Let me give you 3 reasons. Are we ready? First reason is this: it acts as a check upon state power. Again, this comes down to strength in numbers. Over on 513, the paragraph before the one I just read you. He speaks of political associations, by means of which men seek to defend themselves against the despotic action of the majority or encroachments of state power. And he goes on to say, it is clear that unless each citizen learned to combine with his fellows to preserve his freedom at a time when he is individually becoming weaker and weaker, and so less able in isolation to defend it, tyranny would be bound to increase with equality. So these organizations act as a vehicle to check government power. Again, the strength in numbers, governmental power. That's the first thing they do. Second thing they do is they take on jobs that otherwise would fall to government. They take on jobs that otherwise would fall upon government, and hence cause government to expand. Individuals are not self-sufficient. When they need help, okay, if there is an association that does this, they can turn to the association. They don't have to turn to government. Likewise, when they see a problem in their community, they don't have to turn to government. They form an association to address it. In America, government is much smaller than it is in France. And a big part of the reason is associations do what governments do in other places. They do the heavy lifting, so it isn't forced into the hands of government. Because there's no one else, it'll go to government by default. So are they talking about a serious need or something? Your town needs youth sports. You can either say government, city, set up some youth sports, or you can form an association, a little league, a Pee Wee football league, a junior soccer league, whatever. So, and that is again crucially important. On page 515, about 2/3 down the page, the big paragraph, the longest one on the page. It's easy to see the time coming in which men will be less and less able to produce by each alone the commonest bare necessities of life. The tasks of government must therefore perpetually increase, and its efforts to cope with them must spread its net ever wider. The more government takes the place of associations, the more individuals will lose the idea of forming associations and need the government. This is a vicious circle of cause and effect. Keeps government small. You with me? And final thing on the list. Instills public spiritedness. The Democrat instills public spiritedness. Democratic social conditions encourage, foster individualism and consumerism. They foster individuals tuning out and focusing on their own private world. But this associational life pulls people out of their private world into a bigger world. If I'm a member of 4 or 5 associations, if I donate time to them, if I donate money to them, there's more going on in my heart and mind than individualism and consumerism. There's a concern for the community. There's a concern for some cause that I think is noble and important that I want to promote. So this association life really acts again to mitigate the individualism, consumerism. It's sort of like a counterweight, a scale with a balance on it. Well, if there's nothing on this side, boom, this side goes all the way down. So going that side is government. But you balance on the other side and the side starts going up a bit. It counteracts the bad dispositions of democratic cultures. It stops people from, if you will, fully giving into the very things that lead to the new despotism. Because again, the new despotism doesn't just happen. It's a product of the attitudes. And if you can dilute the attitudes, if you can water them down so people are individualistic, but not totally individualistic, who care about their creature comforts, but also care about other things as well, you greatly reduce the chances of slipping into the new despotism. Looking for a quote. In terms of imbuing public spiritedness, if you look on the bottom of page 515, last full paragraph, feelings and ideas are renewed, the heart enlarged, and the understanding developed only by the reciprocal action of men upon one another. You with me? So that's the second thing America's done right. This associational life. You with me? Now we move to the third item on this list. And with the third item, we catch our breath and begin slowing down. We've sort of been flying through it. And now we're going to move slowly because the third item is religion. The third item is the religiosity of Americans. The religiosity of Americans. So, I get my paper to turn. We're going to go slowly here. We're going to go kind of from take it slow, building blocks. First thing we need to talk about is Tocqueville's view of the role of religion in human affairs. There are lots of things, Tocqueville says, that motivate men. There are lots of influences that shape and mold a society. But one of the most important, one of the most foundational is religion. The word culture. What's the first 4 What's the word formed by the first 4 letters of the word culture? Cult, meaning worship, devotion to God. At the heart of a society, you find a religion. It's foundational. It's not the only thing that shapes the society. There are lots of other influences, but it is one of the most important. It is one of the sort of constants. I'm trying to find a page 442, Mike. Pages don't want to turn all of a sudden. Page 442. Very bottom of the page. There is hardly any human action, however private it may be, which does not result from some very general conception men have of God, of his relations with the human race, and of the nature of their soul and of the duties to their fellows. Nothing can prevent such ideas from being the common spring from which all else originates. At the heart of a functioning society, at the heart of a society that's not actively disintegrating, you find a religion. If you think about it, going back to what we talked about earlier, I'm struggling with my voice now. We talked about substantive consensus and whatnot. Talk about how politics and religion are necessarily related. Okay, why are they necessarily related? Because what we think human life is all about, its ultimate meaning and purpose. It's going to affect in some way how we live. It's going to have an influence on how we live. It's going to shape our values. It's going to shape our morals. It's going to shape our everyday lives in all sorts of ways. Fair enough? It's a source of authority. It's also a source of authority. It's also a source of truth with a capital T. What it's all about. What ultimately matters. What are we doing in this world? Why were we born? Why do we die? What happens to us after we die? How were we meant to live? What is the purpose of our existence? Religious questions. Those are necessarily religious questions. And they lie at the core of a society. That substantive consensus, if you look at it carefully enough, is going to include religious beliefs and religious values. That's going to be part of the glue that holds a society together. Because people with diametrically opposed views of what life is all about, diametrically opposed views of right and wrong, diametrically opposed views of what's important, diametrically opposed views of what's good and what's bad. They're going to have a hard time living in a society together. It's going to be hard to unify those people because religion constitutes not the only source, again, there are other things in play, but constitutes part of the social cement, the cultural cement that enables a society to cohere. Fair enough? Or are you with me? Okay, then we page 287. At least I hope it's 287. I'm having trouble reading my handwriting. Page 287, he says the following. Every religion has some political opinion linked to it by affinity. The spirit of man left to follow its bent will regulate political society in the city of God in uniform fashion. It will, if I dare put it so, seek to harmonize heaven and earth. Again, that's simply saying religion will influence and shape politics. It's unavoidable. So that's the first thing we need to know, the centrality and foundational nature of religion. You with me? So I guess we want to put all this in outline, so it's going to be a really long list. We call that number one if you want. I'll try to keep this floating in an outline form. Now, number two is the role of religion in the democratic revolution that's sweeping the world. Right, the backdrop of the book is the movement of Europe, or as he calls it several points, the movement of the Christian countries, or of Christendom, towards democracy. The obvious question is, does religion play a role in this movement? And Tocqueville's answer, of course, is yes. Now, before I go on and explain what its role is, if you go back to those early pages I read you, let's see where they are. We're on page 10 or something. Page 11, he goes on and on about all the different things that contributed to the rise of democracy. And I emphasize that because I don't want you to hear me say religion simply caused the rise of democracy. It was the only thing in play. It was one of the things in play. So the obvious question here, how? What did it do? Two factors here. Two things it did. First one's over on old page 10. You remember how in an aristocratic society, there is no social mobility. You're born an aristocrat, you die an aristocrat. You're born a peasant, you die a peasant. Your social status is given you at birth based on who your parents are, and you can do nothing to change that. There is, however, as we look at European history, an exception. There was one area where social mobility did indeed take place. Page 10, second line. The ranks of the clergy were open to all, poor or rich, commoner or noble. Through the church, equality began to insinuate itself into the heart of government. And a man who would have vegetated as a serf in eternal servitude could, as a priest, take his place among the nobles and often take precedence over kings. There was social mobility there. A serf who becomes a priest suddenly has an exalted social status. A priest who becomes a bishop has an even more exalted social status. And a bishop who becomes a pope, even more of a social status. And that did indeed happen. The ranks of the clergy were open to anyone regardless of social standing. Obviously, the bulk of them ended up being from the higher classes for kind of obvious practical reasons. But in fact, there were numerous cases of prominent bishops starting off as serfs, and even popes starting off as serfs. So that was kind of a chink in the armor of the aristocratic order. And if social mobility is okay there, why is it not okay in other places? Why should other elevated ranks be closed to someone who can become a bishop or a pope? So on the one hand, that's kind of a chink in the armor of immobility. It opens a route to social mobility. And opening that route throws the whole thing into question. in the sense that, well, if this serf can become a bishop, why can't the serf next to him become something other than a serf? If you think about it, it's an implicit challenge to the whole ethos of an aristocratic society. It implicitly contradicts that. So that's number one. Now we move on to the second factor here, how the church contributed to the democratic revolution, and that takes us to 445. Which is not the right page. Oops. I wrote down the wrong page.
But we're there.
I will. Okay. I think I got it. I think I just remembered something. Still striking out. But I will find this. It's a very key passage. It's got to be in the 440s.
Is it 444?
No. That's what I thought it was 443. Okay, we're moving here. Got it. 439. Okay. He says the following, looking back at human history. In the middle of that page, approximately a paragraph. The profoundest and most wide-seeing minds of Greece and Rome never managed to grasp the very general but very simple conception of the likeness of all men and of the equal right of all at birth to liberty. They were at pains to show that slavery was natural and would always exist. Moreover, there's every indication that those of the ancients who had been slaves before they became free, several of whom wrote fine books which have been preserved, saw slavery in the same light. All of the great writers of antiquity were either members of the aristocracy of masters, or at least saw the aristocracy in undisputed possession before their eyes. Their minds roamed free in many directions, but were blinkered in one. Jesus Christ had to come down to earth to make all members of the human race understand that they were naturally similar and equal. Okay, at the heart of Christianity is the view that individual human beings possess worth, dignity, value, and that we're all equal. This comes from many different aspects of the New and the Old Testament. Number one, we're told in the book of Genesis, God created human beings in his own, finish the phrase, image and likeness. All human beings. Okay? We're all equal in that we're all made in the image and likeness of God. And being made in the image and likeness of God, that's something to think about it that's pretty important, pretty fundamental. Sure, you may be a better athlete than me. You may be smarter than me. You may be better looking than me. But all those differences sort of are obviated, wiped away, by the fact that we're all made in the image and likeness of God. That lies at the very core of who we are and outweighs any inequality in natural gifts, natural abilities, or attainments in the course of life. The richest, most powerful man who ever lived is made in the image and likeness of God from this point of view. The poorest, least significant person who ever existed is made in the image and likeness of God. All share in that dignity from this point of view. Each individual possess a sacredness. They possess a dignity, an exalted status by being made in the image and likeness of God. Number two, God doesn't call some men to enter into friendship or community with him. He invites everyone, right? He doesn't say, okay, if you're really rich, you can join Team God, you can be my friend. Not so rich, sorry, you're out of luck, it's like a country club. Okay, all are called by God. God seeks to enter into a relationship of friendship with every man. When God comes to earth, he comes in the form of a carpenter. He doesn't come in the form of an aristocrat, a king, a lord, one of the great dignitaries. He comes in the form of an ordinary guy who works with his hands, a simple craftsman. Okay? So not a great general, not a great philosopher, not the head of a great financial empire, but as an average, ordinary guy. And God seeks the salvation of all, not some. You put all this together, human beings are sacred, we all matter, we're all important. We possess a fundamental dignity, a fundamental sacredness, and we deserve or are entitled to a fundamental respect. Now, this notion, if you think about it, is at a collision course with the ethos of aristocratic society, where it says you matter, you don't, you're important, you're garbage. Okay? There's an incompatibility here between an aristocratic social order and this Christian belief in individual dignity and equality and whatnot. So that means this implicit tension doesn't become apparent immediately. It takes a long time to work out. But Christianity is something subversive. And in Europe, it's put at the very heart of an aristocratic society. And it acts to slowly undermine and subvert it. You with me? So Christianity in those two ways, social mobility via religion, a belief in human equality, acts to erode an aristocratic social order, acts to erode an aristocratic social order. Then we move on, point number 3 here. Might religion have played a role in America becoming a democracy? Did religion play a role in America becoming a democracy? We know it played a role at the start of the Democratic Revolution. It sort of set it in motion. But did it play a role, a special role, relative to America? And the answer is yes, but to see why, we need to think about something. Something that's odd that people don't really think about. It was maybe I'm general. I didn't think about it for long. Many years before this thought popped in my head. The settlers who established the British colonies in North America did not come from a democratic society. They came from a highly aristocratic society. Nonetheless, in this new world, we get to the other side of the ocean, and they establish a democracy. Isn't that a little odd? You would think they'd do what they knew, that they'd copy the familiar. Does it really have a rule book for establishing society? Now that we're here, we'll follow the magic rule book that England has always followed.
Well, they have the parliaments in Europe that existed before that.
They did have parliaments in Europe had existed, but by the time we get to the settlement of North America, they've been pretty much swept away, incapacitated. The one exception is England. But even England undergoes a period of absolutism under Henry VIII and Elizabeth I. So, you know,
And they were heavily influenced by the Greek and Romans, who also had democratic aspects to their.
right. But if you look at, can't disagree with any of that. But if you look at England, what you see is a highly aristocratic society. Even if they had a parliament, it was highly aristocratic. Remember the two houses of parliament, House of Lords, guess who that's for? And then there's the House of Commons. But by commons, they didn't mean back then everybody. They meant like the wealthiest 1% of commoners, people who could pay a lot of taxes. So we want to get them involved, they can fund this way. So in any case, so how does it happen that America plays out to be a democracy? Well, there are a lot of factors in play. I'll mention a couple of them. A, there is the lack of an aristocracy. The people, not many of the people who come over to America are aristocrats. There are a few. But the aristocrats have it really good in England. Why would they want to leave? So he said, I'm trying to find a passage here. That's not it. No, I'm not finding the page. Anyway, he talks about that at some point here. I'll give it to you next time because I want to finish up in a few minutes. The shortage of aristocrats. It's hard to have an aristocracy if you have no aristocrats. Hard to have a House of Lords if you have no lords. It's very simple. So you have that fact. And it's not surprising it played out that way that the settlers, very few of them were aristocrats, because aristocrats were living large in England. Oh, here it is, page 33. Again, my notes failed to note the right page. Page 33, the big paragraph at the end. I'm somewhere in the middle of that paragraph. It is not the happy and powerful who go into exile and poverty. With misfortune is the best known. I'll just leave it at that. It's not the happy and the powerful who go into exile and poverty. Very few aristocrats. Top page 36. Very first line. No great lords in America. That's something of an exaggeration. There were a couple of aristocrats, but not enough to really form a class or dominate the society. Second factor in play is limitless free land. In Europe, all the land was owned. And in Europe, the land was owned by the aristocrats. And they owned it all, so you had to work on land they owned, doing what they tell you to do. If you want to be a farmer, as most people, that's what the overwhelming majority of people did in those days. You needed a member of the aristocracy to say, okay, I'll loan you a little piece of land to be your farm, but I get half of what you produce, and I supervise how you produce it. In America, they couldn't establish that arrangement. I might have a whole ton of land, and our friend Max here might not have any land. And Max might desperately want to be a farmer because he needs a way to survive, and that's the path to food. He could ask me, please, can you give me a little piece of land? I will give you my loyalty and service. Or he could simply walk down the road, cut out a few trees, and set up a farm. So the fact that there was no aristocratic class that held the land, that really destroyed it, aristocracy, because the whole system was built on they control the land, so they run the show. Once you don't have to work on their land, you can work on your own land. Their power pretty much evaporates. But there is a more important factor in America becoming Israel. Oh, those are certainly important. But there's another factor, factor C we'll call it, here. We'll get very far into this today. But if you look at New England, back in that day, who were the people who settled in New England?
The Dutch.
Well, the Dutch were the middle states, New York.
New York.
New York was once New Amsterdam, and stuff. But it was, somebody said the Pilgrims, I think. Might say more broadly the Puritans. Puritanism was a broad religious movement in England.
Quakers.
Yeah, Quakers too, but they, in a loose sense, they were Puritans. It depends on how you want to define, how broadly you want to define Puritanism. Some people with a strict definition would say, well, the Pilgrims really weren't Puritans. Or Quakers really weren't Puritans. I'm using it broadly. Let me explain the background and context here.
Maybe a lot of French people too. In New Hampshire and Vermont.
Yeah.
In Maine.
But again, overwhelmed by the English settlers. Okay. You have to go back to the English Reformation. Henry VIII, back when he was King of England. Do we remember Henry VIII?
Yeah.
The guy with all the wives?
All the wives, yeah.
Right. Henry VIII wants a divorce. The church says no divorces. He appeals to the Pope. The Pope says, sorry, can't divorce your wife. Okay. Not allowed. Can't just kick her out because she can't give you an heir. Henry VIII then takes his church, makes himself head of a new church, the Church of England. He basically becomes the head of English religious life and establishes a new church called the Church of England, sometimes called the Anglican Church. In the U.S., we generally call it the Episcopal Church. But he established a church in which he appoints the bishops and whatnot. And he's the final decider on everything. And lo and behold, his new church gives him a divorce, first thing. Funny coincidence there, how that played out. So, you have this Church of England. And you have a really divided country. England had been an historically Catholic country. So you imagine, and since England's population is mostly Catholic at that point, there are a lot of unhappy people. They say, what's with this new church? This isn't our church. We put you in charge. At the same time, there is a minority of people in England who don't like the Catholic Church. But they also don't like Henry's new church. So they're generally unhappy with the situation. Henry dies, there's turmoil. Eventually his daughter Elizabeth I ends up on the throne. And she's got a problem. You have our country with the official church, the Church of England, she's the head of. But you have all these disaffected Catholics. Some of them entered the new church, some of them, almost everyone technically did, because if you did it, you were killed, so you would be around not to enter. But there are also, the other people who don't like her father's church. They can remind them too much of the Catholic Church. What does she do? She forges, in the interest of keeping England from having a war over this, because it's very unstable at this point. Eventually we'll have 2 civil wars. Says, I'll create a church that's a halfway house. It's half Catholic, half Protestant. We'll take these things from Catholicism, these things from Protestantism, glue them all together. Now everyone be happy. That is called the Elizabethan settlement. as it were, her effort to settle this religious dispute. But she manages to hold it together during her reign, but she's succeeded by her cousin James I of Scotland, who's succeeded by his son Charles I. And at this point, there are problems because that religious minority that the Church of England was too Catholic has steadily grown. They're increasingly angry, increasingly unwilling to live with the status quo. Eventually, civil war is going to break out in 1640 over this, and then going to break out again later in the century, in 1688, 1689, the so-called Glorious Revolution. In England has two civil wars, although the second one was pretty tiny. Well, the first one was a big deal, dominated England for 20 years. And the people who wanted to make the Church of England less Catholic, they constantly talk about we need a purer church. The church has to be purified. They become known as Puritans. By the time you get to the 1620s, some of these Puritans, broadly construed, want out. They say, we're not going to stay here anymore. We want to have our own church, do religion our own way, practice our own purer version of Christianity. So they go across the ocean. That's the Pilgrims. And that's the folks in Massachusetts Bay, the next wave. Then when the Civil War breaks out, more people decide maybe it'd be best if I got out of here. Civil wars are not pleasant. So more of these Puritans begin moving to North America. Especially when you get around 1660, when finally, guess what happens? The king comes back and the Church of England is back. The Puritans had won for a while in the Civil War. They controlled things. But now they don't. Now even more of them leave. And they all settle up in New England. And they're not all part of the same churches. I mean, in the sense, there are all these different versions of Puritanism. They're not on the same page what they want to do, what they think their new church should look like. But they're agreed they don't like the old church, and we need to purify it here. So New England gets populated predominantly by these Puritans. People are unhappy and discontented with England and want to do something different. There's more to be said on this, but we're out of time. I have 2 handouts for you. No need to thank them. Please give me the extras. There's a white handout and there is a blue handout. That's coming down to you, Lou. No, that's fine, no problem. Okay. First, let's look at the white handout. It's very simple. Guidelines for writing the papers in here. Papers 6 to 8 pages in length, right? I will give you the topics 2 weeks in advance. The papers are not research papers. They're analytical papers. Okay, I'm asking you to address questions about the book and lecture. Okay? I don't expect you to do research. I guess I can't stop you from doing it, but I don't really expect you to. I expect papers to be good. The reason I do it this way is so you can put a lot of time into reading and rereading Tocqueville and reading and rereading lecture notes so you could produce a good paper. Well organized, coherent, proper grammar, proper spelling. So I expect, I'm not intending this to be a rush job, do it all the night before. And maybe you could pull that off, I don't know, but I expect most people couldn't produce the kind of paper I'm looking for the night before, so I would shy away from that example. You need to use citation. What citation? A recognized method of citation. So you can use MAL, you can use Chicago, you can use Turabian, I don't care. Just not your brother's method of citation that he invented, or your girlfriend's method of citation that she was using on some other paper. Okay? Fair enough? I'm a big fan of quotations. I want you to convince me you've read the book. And one of the ways you do that is quotation and also citation. One of the rules of thumb. If you attribute a view to Tocqueville, I want to know where he said it. If you say Tocqueville thought democracy was the future of France, I'm going to say, really? I don't remember. Where does he say that? So be ready with a page number or a quotation so you can show me that. Because I want to avoid a retyped version of my lecture notes. Let's see. 10, I have at the bottom, I don't know why I even put this anymore, 10 to 12 point font. That happened because a few times I had students give it to me on 24 point font.
What? That's crazy.
Who did that?
I think it was undergrads, I think. It was long. And I got so many, I kept arguing with them. They kept saying, you wanted 8 pages? I gave you 12. And I kept saying, but in 12-point font, you gave me a half page. So to avoid stupid arguments like that, I put that language in there. Focus on the question. None of my questions say, tell me everything we did on Tocqueville. Okay, they ask for specific topics. So focus on that. Avoid what I like to call the dump truck approach. Okay? You have questions over here. Before I even get to the topics, a couple other points. They're due on the 24th at 3:30, 2 weeks from today. Yes, you can talk me into an extension if you want. Ella Jane left, she normally does this. I'm the easiest of touches. Number 2, I give you 2 topics. But the white sheet tells you, if you don't like my topics, come up with your own. One caveat, you have to clear your own with me. And you have to clear it with me well in advance. You can't show up the day the paper's due and say, by the way, I wrote a paper on X. Hope you don't mind. It's all done. Here it is. No. Clear with me in advance, so if I don't like it, I can veto it, that's right. And my vetoes can't be overridden, unlike the president. You have 2 questions there. And they're pretty self-explanatory. They come in parts. No, I don't expect you to write them as 3 separate essays or some of the things you need to cover. The attitudes he believes democratic social conditions tend to foster and their political consequences. The soft despotism, right? The role of religion in launching American democracy and the contribution of religion to the success of American democracy. We haven't fully covered Part B and we haven't touched on Part C yet. That'll be next class. And the second question, the role of religion in human social life, its role in launching both the democratic revolution and American democracy, and then the contribution of religion to the success of American democracy. Now, some of this stuff we haven't gotten around to yet, so we could theoretically push the paper back a week if you think you'd like more time. Because some of it I won't lecture on until next class.
Would it be possible to push the paper off in the entrance of learning more about the topics then?
Well, yes, that is what I was hinting. We're gonna be picking up, Ella Jane can teach you another few tricks to get this done, so she's very good at that. So what, somebody with a calendar, I don't have one in front of me, when would I be pushing this off to? March 3rd it is then. I will post this on Canvas and with the corrected date. Couple of them, I'm a soft touch. Maybe not so soft when it comes to actually evaluating the papers, but giving people time to do a good job, giving them every opportunity. Trying to think of what else I wanted to say if we've hit it all. Oh, here's the other thing I wanted to say simply. To anticipate questions that have not shown up yet, but in the interest of speed. Will I read an outline? Yes. Will I read a rough draft even for you? Yes. Subject to the caveats. You can't simply give it to me and say, I need it tomorrow. You need to give me 2 or 3 days to be able to get around to doing it. My schedule's pretty insane with the administrative stuff. Not with you guys, you're easy and fun. See, this is great. See, today everyone kept saying, you look down today, you look depressed. Are you sick or something? Well, I am both sick and depressed over paperwork. But this cheers me up. We're doing great stuff. We're doing the important stuff that this institution exists to do. Although I'm not sure how well it does it. But that's neither here nor there. For our purposes. So yeah, I will look at outlines. You know, look, maybe if there's just a question, just want to come in and say, can explain a little more what you mean by that, or does this fit under that? Is that part of what you're asking? I'm fine with all that. Just the rule is you can't show up cold. But I warn you, I get called away to a lot of meetings. A lot of times I'm not there, especially late in the day. So probably if you want to be sure I'm going to be there to meet with you, give me an email in advance. And we don't have to do this during office hours necessarily. We can do it some other time. As I like to say, I'm always here. That's pretty well true. I worked all weekend. Let the good times roll. I guess that's it. Keep plugging. Hopefully you've kept up with the reading. I meant to bug you with the starter class about that and forgot.